Okay, so tomorrow you have a test. The test is going to cover lesson 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, and 7.6. We already took a quiz on lesson 7.3 and 7.4. I've returned those to you. You can use those to study. There will be questions that look just like the quiz questions. The instructions on the test are going to be the same for all 15 questions, and the instructions at the top of the test will say factor all questions. So it's the general instructions. There are no word problems. Every question, all 15, must be factored. The last question will also come from 7.6, where you will have to factor it twice. So the questions are not in any specific order. They are all mixed together. The quiz, they were nice and organized. It had 5 questions from 7.3 and 5 from 7.4. However, the test, they're going to be all mixed together, the questions from 7.3, 7.4, 7.5. Now, again, just like on the quiz, I'm not going to give you questions where I'm going to ask you to fill in boxes. Again, the question that will be presented will look like this. And it will say factor. Okay, I'll do an example of one of these. Let's go down and let me do number 4 here. So these were the simple trinomials that you did on the quiz. And what you were doing here was looking for 2 numbers that multiplied to give you 50, but who added to give you the middle term, which was 15. Now, if you're not sure right away, you're going to make your organized list. 1 times 50, 2 times 25, 3 won't go into 50, 4 won't either, but 5 will. And then as soon as you see the combination that's going to give you also 15, stop there and put it here. Because so 5 times 10 is 50, and 5 plus 10 is 15. So you would put those directly into your binomials, x plus 5, x plus 10. Now, because there are only 15 questions, I do highly recommend after you've answered all 15 that you do go back and FOIL your answers. And again, what I mean by that is we would do first, outside, inside, and last. If it does not FOIL back to the original, then you know you've done something incorrectly and you need to erase and start all over. So the final answer for this question is the x plus 5 and the x plus 10. So what I just highlighted in green, that is your final answer. We did 5 of these on the quiz. You will have some of these on the test. So that was 7.3. And then here are more examples. This time they're now making the last term negative. However, the process is still the same. So again, I'm not giving you the boxes. You can cross those off. Again, all questions will say factor. So these are more examples that you can practice with. And then there are the answers on the last page. Then from lesson 7.4. This is where the trinomials got a little bit more difficult, and there was a leading coefficient. There was a number in front of x squared. Again, I'm not giving you the boxes. I'm going to just give you the problem. So let's say we took number 3 this time. I know when we did the quiz, I did different ones. I'm going to go ahead and solve number 3 for you. So for number 3, because there's a number in front of x squared, I need to incorporate it. So I'm going to multiply 2 times 21. I'm now looking for 2 numbers that will multiply to give me 42, but who will also add to give me negative 13. And again, I can start my organized list. 1 times 42. And notice that last term is positive. So I need to have same signs, and the sign that both terms will have are going to be negative, negative. So then negative 2 times negative 21. 3 will also go in here. Let's check it out how many times. And it will go in 14 times. I still haven't found my combination that gives me 13. I'm going to keep checking. 4 will not go into 42 evenly, and neither will 5. However, 6 will. 6 times 7, negative 7, gives me positive 42. And when I add them, I get negative 13. So now here's where I bring in my trick. So to factor this, I take the first term right here, the 2x. It's the beginning of both of my binomials. And then the two factors that I just found. At this step, this is where you simplify. The first binomial can be reduced by dividing them both by 2. And it gives me x minus 3. And the second binomial cannot be simplified, so I am now finished. Again, at this point, if you have time, go back, FOIL it, make sure it gives you the original answer or question. If not, you've done something incorrectly. That was 7-4. Again, all questions say factor. Then from 7-5, this is where we saw the special cases. I will not ask you to tell me, is it a perfect square trinomial or is it the difference of two squares? I'm just going to tell you to factor it because it will be factorable. So for example, so right here, number 1 is not a perfect square trinomial. So don't do that one. You can skip that one. However, number 2 and number 3 can be factored. Those are perfect square trinomials. So you can factor those. So let me demonstrate number 3. Now, number 2, you could do it the same way you did 7-3. Look for the factors of 49 that give you negative 14. But for number 3, you can do it the long way. Multiply 25 and 4. Get the factors of 100 that give you 20. Or, if you're good at recognizing perfect squares, all you need to do is square root the beginning and the end, and then that will go right into your binomials. The sign in between is the sign in the middle. Once you do this, you should FOIL it. If it doesn't FOIL back, then you can't do the trick and you have to do it the long way. Okay? However, what a lot of people are concerned with is they want consistency. So technically, you could do all of them the same way by multiplying the first and the last term, getting that product, find the factors of the product, that will give you the middle. You could do that for every question. The problem with that, with this lesson, is some of the perfect squares will be large, and you're going to be dealing with really big numbers. However, it is doable doing it the long way. So that was the perfect square trinomial example. On the second page, we have the difference of two perfect squares, or the difference of two squares. When you see a binomial and I ask you to factor it, again, I'm not going to give you this stuff to fill in. Again, the questions are just going to say factor. If you are good at recognizing perfect squares, all you do to factor these is square root them. Notice number 5, 30 is not a perfect square. Okay, so number 5 is not a perfect difference of two squares because 30 is not a perfect square, so skip that example if you're using this to study. Also on number 9, I'm not going to give you anything to the 4th power. So if we change this question, and let me do this one as an example, I'm going to change number 9, and I'm going to make it 9x squared minus 64. When I go to factor that one, I'm going to square root the ends, and I get 3x when I square root 9x squared. And then when I square root 64, I get 8. Now, those will be the numbers in both of the binomials, but in order to FOIL back, one must be a plus sign, one must be a minus sign. So that's how you factor the difference of two perfect squares. Everybody good on those? I'll show you another one. Let me just make up a random problem. Let's say it's 25x squared. Okay, 25x squared minus 49. So for this one, you would square root them and get 5x minus 7 and 5x plus 7. Watch what happens when I FOIL it. First gives me 25x squared. Outside gives me 35x. Inside gives me negative 35x. And last gives me the negative 49. Notice the middle terms cancel out, and it does indeed go back to my original problem. So I did factor it correctly. It's 5x minus 7, 5x plus 7. So that is the difference of two squares. So those are good examples that you can do. You could go back and do number 4, number 6, number 7, and number 8. And there are the answers. Okay, 476, lesson 7-6. Again, you're going to be given a trinomial. You are going to need to factor out a greatest common factor first. Now, notice on this one, this is just a review. Number 1 is a review of 7-5. You can just factor it. Number 2 is a review of 7-1. All you're doing is factoring out a GCF. And then number 3, you're going to factor out a GCF and then factor the remaining trinomial. This is the type of question you will get tomorrow. So I will do number 3. Yes?
Will it be positive or negative or it's not?
Anything goes. There's different, so it could have different signs.
Okay.
All right, so here I'm going to divide by 2. That's my greatest common factor. And then I'm left with x squared plus 4x plus 3. I am looking for the factors of positive 3 that will give me 4. And that's going to be 3 times 1 and 3 plus 1. So I will factor it into x plus 1, x plus 3. And the GCF gets written outside. Do not forget to put that GCF outside. Okay, you will also have a -1 question where you're factoring out a -1 just like you did on the quiz. If you forget to put the -1 in front of your answer, you will lose points. That's how there were a lot of 99s. I took off a point. So that is your study guide for tomorrow. I would go back, pick out the ones that you'll factor out of GCF, and then you'll factor what remains. All of these are perfect examples that you can do to practice for the question from 7-6, because they're all involving factoring out a GCF first, and then you factor what remains a little bit further. So again, the test is tomorrow. There are 15 questions, and all 15 questions say factor. No word problems. We've been doing a lot of factoring practice, so you can always go back, rework the worksheets if you want to make sure that you're good with it, and also use your quiz to study. That's it. So if you have questions, I will be available tomorrow morning before school, and look over it now. Use this class time and to look over it and see if you have any last minute questions on anything.